Okay, so I'm going to go through each ice just briefly and kind of follow along in the. So the first ice, the shilas, were as follows. Basically, the same shilah on two different in Yoneh. On the pasuk, "V'hamashkilim yashidu CHAZZARAH," which describes this enlightenment, heavenly enlightenment. So the Zohar says this refers to the Zohar itself that Yidden will learn before Geula, as a preparation for Geula. So that is pre-Geula. But the Medrash says, brings a whole Medrash, a whole marshal of a king who betroths a woman and then marries her. So by in Matan Torah, the first mitzvah being a Chodesh Hazeh Lachem, that being only the Eidisin, so we only got the Levana. However, Lassid Love will be the Nisuyin, and then not just the Levana, but as our pasuk describes, the Rekia and the Kechavim and so on, the whole heaven, celestial, all the celestial bodies. So that's referring to Lassid Love. So how do you reconcile this? Which one is it? The answer is, it is both, as the Maimon explains. Likewise, you find a similar contradiction, as it were, and the same resolution with respect to the pasuk, like Kriyas Yamsuf. Kriyas Yamsuf or Lassid Love. What's the pasuk that is addressed? The pasuk says, which is the pasuk of the kapitel that year, pasuk Nuntes, kapitel Nuntes, pasuk Yudzayin, Vani Oshi Uzecha, I will sing your strength, Varanein Labeker Chazdecha, and I will, another word for sing, your unto the morning your kindness. So here too, what's the pasuk referring to? One, Lassid Love, the second one, Kriyas Yamsuf. The first one from the Medrash, Lassid Love, and brings the pasuk. This is important for the end of the Maimon. This is referring to Lassid Love because Vani Oshir Uzecha. Where do we see that? Here we're talking about singing your strength. So Lassid Love, it says, in the Kedli Shosi Eftach V'Yefchat Ki Ozi V'Zimraska. And there brings also Varani Labeker Chazdecha. So there's two similarities to the pasuk Vani Oshir Uzecha Varan Labeker Chazdecha. Number one, the inyan of Oiz, and also Varan Labeker Chazdecha. So that's referring to the Yom Adin, according to first Pirush. Because in the the time will come when the guardian Hashem will mete out Beker, reward, and night and darkness. The second Pirush is Vani Oshir Uzecha is referring to the future. I'm sorry, that's the future. The second Pirush is it refers to Shira Sayom. And what did they say there too? Oziv Zimraska. And there too the same pasuk, Varan Labeker Chazdecha. The same pasuk is I'm sorry, our pasuk is quoted, the pasuk Vani Oshir Uzecha. Varan Labeker Chazdecha was referring to that morning when Hashem crossed, when they crossed the, Hashem confounded the Egyptians and didn't cross the Red Sea. So here too, Ozi V'Zim Vaskor. So here the pasuk is our pasuk, Kapitel Nun Tes, is also has the same word, so it's referring to the event of Kriyas Yamsuf. Bottom line, the words Vani Oshir Uzecha Varan Labeker Chazdecha is understand to be meaning both Lassid Love and Kriyas Yamsuf. And as the Maimon is reconciled at the end, what's the answer? The answer is both, because one is the achana for the other, and more than the achana, the Maimon at the end said, what was the whole point of the Maimon? At the very beginning of Kriyas Yamsuf, of Yetzias Mitzrayim, already there was Behelem, the whole inyan of the Bekiya Lassid Love, of the Nor Lassid Love, which is all the inyan of Gidli Pnimis HaTorah, as the Maimon goes on to explain. So now starts the explanation of the whole inyan. So the respect to the Giluim Lasid Lovei, so what does the pasuk say? Similar thing, a similar kind of contradiction. Hina Yaskil Avdi Yorim V'Nosa V'Govam Ba'id. Who's it referring to? The first Piddush is that it goes on Mashiach, and the second Piddush, brought down by the primary Meforshim, it goes on every year. And both Piddushim are true, because why will these milas be by every year? Because they be by Mashiach, and he will confer them upon every year. How so? Through the limit of Pnimis HaTorah, because everything comes through Torah. All Hamshachas come through Torah. So by teaching them Pnimis HaTorah, which the mind will explore what that means, so therefore every year has these milas of Yaskil and Yoram, V'Nosa, and Govam Ba'id. So he establishes what's Mashiach going to teach, Lasid Lovei. So he proves we can't say that it's what? Nigla. Number one, because it says that the Torah now is hevel compared to Transition Mashiach. So therefore, it can't be what we're learning now, which is Nigla, because that's described as it's something else. This is hevel compared to what's coming then. So obviously it's not the Torah as we learn it now. Furthermore, Mashiach is going to teach every year, even Moishe Ben and the others, including those who have actually learned the whole Torah. Now, there is such a possibility, and many Jews fulfill this, of learning all of Nigla. So what's he going to teach them? So obviously, another proof that which Mashiach will teach is Pnimius HaTorah. And that the inner dimensions, Yishakenim Nishikas Piyo, he will kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. And Rashi explains, referring to the secrets of Torah revealed in Mashiach will come. Moreover, and here's where the Maimon begins the whole journey, how is the teaching going to be in a way of the ear? The ear seeing higher than grasp. And that explains why even his teaching, Mashiach is both a Rav and a Melech, but even his teachings, his main identity, main quality is Melech. Even his teachings will be in a way of Melech, because Malchus is higher than grasp. Kabbalah's oil, and then follows the Nasiv and Nishma. Nas is higher than Nishma, which is learning. When the words of the Maimon Chazal, first accept my Malchus and then my commandments. So Malchus is higher. So even his teaching will be in a way of the ear. And therefore, he'll teach everyone, and that's also not a stira, that no man will teach his fellow, says the pasuk, for all will know me. That's talking about teaching every midavon of asaga. No one's got to instruct anybody else in that. So if no one's going to do that, what's Mashiach going to be instructing? The answer is not avon of asaga, but pnimis HaTorah in a way of the ear. This is also why you have to have the splitting of the Nor Lasid Lovei. Just like Kriyas Yamsuf was Achron of Matan Torah, so too the splitting of the river is Achron for Pnimius HaTorah. As it comes at the end of the Maimon, although the Maimon doesn't spell it out, but as we offer the explanation, the of the Kriyas, the Yam before Matan Torah, as the Maimon says, is Malchus. So the word of Hashem, the creative word of Hashem, is opened up. In other words, they saw that God is the creator. By Kriyas Yamsuf, they saw the force invested in creation, and that was Achana for Matan Torah, for Nigla the Torah, for the Havana, for Bina, if you like. Malchus opens in order to receive Bina, but now Lasid Lovei is in Achana for Mashiach's coming, and Lasid Lovei Bina opens. That's the Nor in order to receive from Chochmah and Etzem HaChochmah. Is that clear? That's the end of the Maimon. Explaining, right? And then Shom Nismechaboy, as he says, the Maimon Gilya Etzem HaChochmah Gilya V'Atzmos. That really is all it's explained now. So from Eis Gimel is the explanation. To understand deeper the mile of Pnimius HaTorah revealed then, because the problem is we have Pnimius HaTorah now as well. The Ashbi, Rabbi is coming up, the Arizal, Chassidus. And likewise in Gan Eden, that the neshama, after 120 years, merits, what does the neshama merit? The limit of Pnimiyus HaTorah. So it's around now, the Maila, and down here too, Zohar, Kabbalah, Chassidus. So what's the Chiddush of Lasid Lovin? To understand that, a whole arichas now to explain the splitting of the river, the union of what? Of Bina and its relationship with Chachma. That's the second paragraph in Ois Gimel. So what's the union of Bina? Bina is Chachma, which flows from the Mayan. So the expansiveness of Bina flows from Chachma. So what's the chiddush of this Maimer? Really, what this Maimer is bringing out here is that it's not as we might superficially understand. Here's the whole point of it. Chachma mutes and transforms into Bina. It becomes Bina. That's how you might learn this initially. The seed develops and grows and becomes the child or the whatever we speak of. The seed is no longer, it's now transmuted into a different stage. The whole point of the Maim here, that's not so. That the Nakud of Chachma remains fundamentally removed. Of course, it's invested in Bina, but the Vaya Elavush. And then he identifies later, not only that, not only is the Nakud of Chachma doesn't become Bina, but remains forever as an independent state of being, how much more so the Etzim of Chachma. That's a layer reveals later. So the Mayan itself does not become the river. The inexhaustible Mayan remains the Mayan. It produces the river, but doesn't become the river. Chachma produces Bina, but doesn't become Bina. The Kudah Beichala, you need always to have Chachma present. It can't recede to a complete concealment, because then Bina will be a runaway Bina and build an edifice that's not even faithful to the original discovery. So you need Chachma at the forefront of consciousness constantly to ensure that the Bina that it gives rise to is faithful to the Chachma. But it's present, but again, doesn't become it. The point is, it's in the levush of Bina, but not becoming Bina. Likewise, you find with respect to the Amshach of Midas to Seichel, that the Midas from Seichel, that Midas are not born from Seichel itself. Just by knowing, understanding something, you're not going to give rise to a Midah, because they're two fundamentally different worlds. And as we said, the simple words to remember the essential difference is objective and subjective, and they are opposite worlds. They are not the same. Objectivity cannot become subjective. If it becomes subjective, it's disappeared. It's gone. Objectivity is objectivity. It can't become something else. Either you can, forget it and move away from that world and become subjective, but it cannot become subjective. So, likewise, in the world, a similar kind of model is Seichel and Midas. Seichel will not naturally produce Midas. It's a different world. It's also, relatively speaking, subjective versus objective. Midas is subjective, and Seichel generally is objective. That same relative model is Bina and Chachma. Again, relativity is the operative word here. Continually defining all the levels, it's all relative. So how do you go from Seichel to Midas? A whole process of his bonus, of Das, it's not going to happen just like that. That's going to arouse Midas. Again, the same idea that the Seichel, a source of something, doesn't mean that the source becomes that which it produces. Because again, they're two separate worlds, objective, subjective, and therefore you need to have this middle stage, or this levush of his bonus of Das, in order to produce the Midas. Likewise, the Mayan and the Nahar, that even though the Nahar comes from the Mayan, nonetheless, it is not the Mayan. it remains concealed from the river completely. On the contrary, the more the river expands and grows, the more distant is the Mayan. And the third mashal is the tippa of the Av, that even though everything, the Kayach HaMeilit is all there in potential state, but looking there, you don't see anything at all. That's completely behelim. All that emerges there is completely behelim. Likewise, Chachma and Bina, that Bina conceals Chachma. And moreover, now he brings in not till now we're just speaking Bachlal, Chachma versus Bina, Seichel versus Midas, the Mayan in contrast to the Noah. In other words, we've identified only what? 2 levels. And now he adds Leizer Bulvad, that not only is there this level that remains removed from the origin, removed from that which it produces, but there's a third level, the etzem. There's the etzem of the Mayan, there's the etzem of the Tippa, there's the etzem of Chachma. Right? So there's the Oir V'chayis Ruchni that's in the Tippa. Then there's the etzem of Chachma, which we defined as the truth of the concept. Now I just want to mention here that the truth of the concept, so truth is universal, but we don't mean, and there's levels therefore to etzem is again relative. There's the ultimate Atzmus, of course, is the Eibishter, so everything is relative. When we speak here in this maimed of the etzem HaChachma, we mean the etzem of this Chachma. Now what is that? It's the truth of this Chachma, which of course that truth is connected to when it shares the common essential properties of all truths. But we're not speaking about this removed, transcendent, it's the truth. It's a true idea. So the truth of this idea. Again, the word relative is, the concept of relativity is critical to understanding this maimer or any maimer. We mean the etzem of this chachma. Again, what is that? It's the truth of this chachma. Small t, perhaps, of course, connected to the capital T, the truth, the universal truth, period, that defines all things. Or that is the truth of all things. The etzem of all things. Okay. So there's a third level. There's the etzem of the chachma, the etzem of the tippa, and the etzem of the mayan. And what he's saying is that in the Re'iyah, that's the next mashal of Re'iyah and Shmiyah, it's in Re'iyah, there's different levels of Re'iyah, but in Re'iyah, what is taken there is, in that moment when you see it, you see something you've never seen before. Mind you, it's an easier mashal, because if you've seen it before, you already come with your subjective relationship to it. So we're talking about something you've not seen before. It's also true even if you, heard about it and learned about it before and then see it. This is still true. In that sight, everything is conveyed. The truth of what is comes to you. That's what seeing is. The person is entirely passive, and the truth, light travels and impressions itself upon the eye and the brain, and the image of that which you look at is faithfully restored. That's what happens with Chachma as well. What happens with Chachma? The person has this experience, this discovery. It's the truth that wells up and illuminates his mind for a moment, for that fleeting moment. And the truth, and this idea on these two levels, the idea and the truth of the idea is simultaneous. That's why it's so transfixing. When that moment happens, a person's oblivious to his entire surroundings, as he has this internal seeing, not seeing something outside, he's seeing something in his head. But that moment of sight is completely transfixed him, because it's not about him at all. He's just witness to it. It's the truth that has struck him. And of course, it's all relative. People have very profound discoveries, deep truths. Though this experience is extraordinary. We can all have it on a relative level. Some people are blessed more with the Chachma faculty, some more with the Bina, and some more with the Das.
Can I ask a question? So, like, the way a human being actually sees something and the way it actually is are not exactly the same. So can you say there's
the way what? You see in the way what?
The vision, that people's eyesight is a certain way of perceiving something that is actually there. Like, we can't, the naked eye doesn't see things the way it necessarily is. So you have the absolute truth of what is there, and then we have our way of.
Why do you say we don't see the way it is?
I'm talking in a physical way. Our eye. Science.
Why aren't you seeing the way it is? If it's a healthy eye and it's light, why aren't you seeing it?
The way that our eyesight, the way a fish will see the exact same thing as that we're seeing it, we will not see it in the same way. Our eyes work with the diffraction of light. The concept of vision works like it works in a way that gives us sight, but it's not necessarily the absolute truth of what's in front of us. We can't see air which is in front of us, but it really is absolutely there. Because our eyes can't see it doesn't mean that it isn't there.
No, because it's not seeable. Things that are seeable
to our eyes, but it's seeable.
Okay, yeah, this is what it is. It's a camera. What's there that can be seen is seen. What can't be seen can't be seen. Mm-hmm. But seeable things are seen. And if the camera or the eye is working properly, then what is seen, period. And everybody therefore sees it the same way. Our understanding and appreciation relationship, no. But the objective seen, yes.
Okay.
It's a relative marshal. If you're saying that, I don't know, whatever. It's another area we're going, but the answer to your question would be relative. Mm-hmm. Right? Relatively speaking, seeing, and the indication is we all see the same way. All cameras take the same picture. If they're the same, if they're a good camera, then they'll pick it up. The better the camera, even to take your point, the better the camera, the better you're seeing. What does that mean? The more you're out of the way, the more you're going to pick up of what's there. By definition, seeing is allowing whatever it is there to be impressioned upon you. It's completely passive. All right. Now, that's just, so this is knowledge, Shmiya and Riya and Shmiya.
There must be an element of perceiving what you're seeing.
Yeah, there could be. So you're bringing into it. That's why I said the best marshal is something you haven't seen before. Now, before you have a time, before the analysis, the subjectivity kicks in, that first moment is boom, just seeing it. Now, can we see something? It's all relative. Can we see something purely objectively? Maybe not, but relative to hearing about it, yes. It's still a movable. And when you, like you're saying, when you bring your whole personality to bear when you look at something, so it's somewhat skewed by your personality and maybe, as Elza is saying, by the nature of your physical eye. But relatively speaking, to Shmiya, it is seeing what is. Again, everybody sees the same thing. If afterwards, seeing this thing, a whole lot of people watching it, and you ask them to identify what did you see, they'll all point to the same thing. There's one answer, that. Just one singular answer. We saw this, and they'll point to that. When you ask them, what does it mean to you, they have a whole different answer. You're not going to have the same answer from everybody. But if you ask them, what did you see? Tell me what you saw. Point to it. There. You won't point itself and say, there. If you heard about it, and you ask, what did you hear about? He's gonna point to himself. He's gonna tell you in his words what he heard about. And you're gonna get that filtered through him. You're gonna get information filtered through him. But if it's something that he saw, he's just gonna point you that direction. Go see it yourself.
Just like CHAZZARAH van Veyu by Chris.
Pardon?
Is this like the CHAZZARAH van Veyu by Chris Yamsuf?
Chris Yamsuf was a seeing, yes, of what? Of Malchus opening up and seeing the Dvar Hashem. Seeing the levels above Malchus. Here we're seeing that which is beyond even Bina. by meaning by Lasid Lava, which is what this mashal is. But the last thing I said, I think, kind of makes it clear. If you're talking to someone and you want to get, and you're asking about something, which he only heard about, and you want to have that information. So who are you looking at? Him. But if he saw it and you want the information about it, he said, "Don't look at me." He says, "It's there. That's what I saw." He's out of the picture and points you to the truth of what is. Very simply. So again, subjectivity and objectivity. And that's why when you hear about something, you hear about it detail after detail as you build it in your head. And that's how you build the klal. Whereas seeing, you see everything all at once. Now he mentions klal because this is developed later, and it's relative also. So not relative, sorry. It's also the same model. Well, it is a different model, but it's the same model. Namely, everything has 3 dimensions. The pratim, the klal, and the etzem. And that's the 3 things we're talking about here. We speak with Chachma and Bina. Bina the pratim, Chachma per se is the klal, the etzem of Chachma is the etzem. And the difference being, and that explains the story with the Arizal. That the Arizal could doze for a moment, for an hour, and speak for 60 or 80 years. It's not because he saw the klal. The klal, true, the general principle spawns much detail, but not, one principle is not going to spawn detail for 60 or 80 years. But the Arizal, in his doze, which was an experience of the ear, he got the etzem. So the 3 things you spoke about till now, the etzem of the Mayan, and then the Nohor, the Tipa, the etzem HaTipa, the Tipa, and the mother, the receiver, who develops the details. And what's the other moshel? These are the Mishalim. So these all match up to Etzem, Klal, and Prat. Are we following this, folks?
Seichel and Midas too?
And Seichel and Midas, let's see the 3 in Yonim. Yeah, same thing. There's the Etzem HaSeichel, there's the Isboninus, the Klal, and then there's the Pratim, the Midas. Same model. Yeah, thank you. That was the 3rd model. So what's that? Arizal seeing, everybody's following me. The Arizal is relating to the Etzem HaChachma. If it was only the Klal, you wouldn't have the 60, 80 year disparity. So now, having said all of this, we will understand that Mashiach Lasid Lavai, that even though we have now Pnimis HaTorah, but now Pnimis HaTorah is what level? It's the level of Bina, Shmiya. We're learning line by line, hearing about Elikus. Quite simply, we're hearing about Elikus. And Lasid Lavai will see Elikus. So Lasid Lavai is the union of what? Of Re'iyah. And what level of Re'iyah? Not only the Klal, not only Chachma, but the Etzem of Chachma. Which means not only we experience the union of Seviv Kalalmin, as it were, but Atzmus and Mahus. Again, to use broad terms. Elikus also manifests in the same way. It's Atzmos Seviv Mamala, or Ata Havaya Elikeinu, as Yankee was speaking about by the Fabrengen. Every bracha, that's what we're saying. Baruch Hamshacha Ata Atzmos, Havaya is the Klal, Seviv Makiv, and Elikeinu is the Pratim. So everything comes back to this general template. All things have essence, general identity, and the details. We illustrated this using an apple, using a human being. There's an apple. It's an apple. Period. That's its essence. It's an apple, which it shares in common with all apples. Then there's the klal. What type of apple? And then there's the pratim. Its color, weight, taste, and myriads of pratim. Or we give the marshal of a person. there's the person, a human being. Then there's the personality type. That's the klal. And then there's the details of his manifested behavior. And we explained that just being told, relating to the etzem itself, you cannot know the klolim and the pratim. If I tell you the klal, you'll know the pratim. And if I give you the pratim, you can reconstruct the klal. But I just tell you the etzem, you don't know how that manifests. It's completely transcendent. Even though it's the etzem of the klal and the prat, this human being, everything we're talking about is, that's humanity, that's human being. But etzem built in this gala means that seeing the etzem, there's no giluyim to the etzem. You can't pigeonhole it. Or another mashal, if you're looking under an atomic microscope and you look at an atom of something, you don't know, if that's all you're seeing is the atom, you don't know what you look, atom of what? You got to step back and not look at the etzem and seize the etzem of, of whatever it is you're looking at. Gas, solid, liquid, and all of it, whatever the thing is. But just looking at the etzem, it could be really any etzem.
So, Rabbi, on that,
huh?
Could I ask a question on that?
Yes.
So how does that fit in with that? The Arizal saw etzem chachma, and in that he had everything that he could have learned over 70 or 80 years. It seemed that he saw the etzem.
Yeah.
But he had the pratim too.
Right. I was anticipating that question, and thank you. And that we bavon that earlier, because there's in etzem itself is also relative. He saw the etzem of that chachma.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the transcendent etzem, which is the etzem of everything. So the most that I gave before, if I tell you there's a human being, and you know that, again, it would have to be the sort of pure, not an accurate moshel. It would be if you had access the etzem of this unique human being. It's not as universal as all human beings connected to this. It's a relative thing.
Is it a distinction between, etzem or atmut and etzem chachma? They're a different thing.
Of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Bound up, but everything has its own relative etzem.
Yeah.
Everything. The marshal of the atom is not really good because it's not the etzem of this thing only. It's etzem of everything. It's too universal. That's what I'm saying. It's all relative. So I'm not a scientist, but I'm sure there's a better marshal of an atomic of a cluster or model that would be the relative etzem of this.
Okay.
Of this.
I have another question at the end of the last paragraph of the first paragraph on page 34. There makes a distinction between re'iyas inyan seichel and re'iyah de chachma, and the re'iyah de chachma. That's
where are you? Where are you? What are you pointing to?
The last few lines on the first paragraph of page 34. The last
you have the same layout as I have.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at.
So the last few lines. No, before that, the second to last paragraph of Ois Dalet.
Okay.
So saying that re'iyas ein haseicha, that's still a re'iyah.
Where are you?
And then there's the re'iyah de chachma, which is re'iyas ha'etzem. So the re'iyas ein haseicha is that kind of like the chachma as it's invested in bina through hasaga, but it's still a re'iyah, so it's chachma, but it's invested in bina.
Or even before it goes into bina.
Mm-hmm.
What he's saying is that at the chachma experience, there's two levels.
Mm-hmm.
There's the seeing of the idea in a seminal way, and seeing the etzem of the idea. You clear? And it's the lower level that then governs and directs bina, but still not becoming bina.
Okay.
The etzem certainly removes. The mayan, there's two levels to the mayan. There's the manifested mayan and the etzem of the mayan. And neither of them become bina. But the manifested mayan is what has to be brought to bear to govern bina. And the etzem remains essentially removed. Although, of course, it all comes from the etzem.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes from the etzem. It's nothing other than the water that has sprung from the spring at its core level. They're not something else coming, that attach. They're not things attached. Chokhmah produces bina. Etzem produces chokhmah. What he's saying is, yes, it produces it, but in the way of a lavush behelem, it itself remains its own essential, relatively speaking, pristine level. Not that it all then morphs and becomes at the end something else, and the original stages don't exist anymore. That's what he's saying.
The explanation of Adam's question on the Rizal, so the klal of etzem bilti mizgala doesn't apply when it's the etzem of a specific thing?
So what you're asking, what's the Rizal? So the etzem chokhmah.
Etzem bilti mizgala is the klal, but based on the explanation that was given on the Adam's question about the Rizal, it seems that etzem bilti mizgala doesn't apply when it's the etzem of something specific.
That's right. No. So then it's not nizgala per se. Even then it's not nizgala per se. All the words that he's saying from the etzem still don't exhaust it and don't define it at the end. Still not just all of this. Even the 60, 80 years is not.
Right, so that's why it would take 60, 80 years.
But even then, it's not like he's laid bare the etzem. Still not confined to the words that the Arizal said. He could have used other words. He could have given other explanations. It's still built in Bizgala in the sense that you haven't encapsulated and saying, this is the etzem in these words. Not so. It could be in other words. It could be said other ways. But because it was an etzem experience, that's why there's so many words. 60, 80 years of speaking. If you only saw the Chachma, who would speak for a week, whatever it is. I have no idea. But it would be such a huge disparate time. An hour produces 60, 80 years. But so that's why it would take 60, 80 years. But still, our principle still holds. It's not like that the etzem is these giluyim define the etzem. Because again, he could have used other words and other biyurim and other mishalim. So it's still true etzem built in Mizgala. But because an atzmi is dike experience, that's why it can go for so long. And so many explanations, and so many layers, and so many words, and so many esbeidim. The klal would exhaust itself at some point. The etzem, he went on for long. And even then, there's so many words you can say, you just can't come up with more esbeidim. But there could be somebody else that would experience that etzem would use different oisias.
But still staying true to the fundamental chachma of it.
It is nothing other than that. It is nothing other than that. If it's true, like what's the human being? Everything that we're talking about in the pratim, that's human. It's human. It's nothing other than that's what human beings do. Nothing other than that. And like the atom, everything is made up of atoms, not made of something else. That's what it is. But its essential identity remains essentially removed from any particular expression, even though the particular expression is nothing other than the etzem. What is it after all if not made up of atoms? But atoms are confined to this gilui. Human beings aren't confined to this particular expression. And even this person himself, he could change. Personality types and behavior can change. He's still the same person fundamentally, essentially, but you can go through, and we do, from childhood to adulthood. There's radical changes of the same person. But the etzem, you're not going to change. Even though but there's a limit to how much you can change as well. You can't become a whole different kind of person. But there's room for molding even the klal and the pratim to be somewhat shifted and molded. That's it doesn't build in mishtana, built in mizgala. You can't change that.
What about in
expression
Torah?
Can be changed.
What about in Torah? Torah being the source in chachma of Hashem.
Well, we're talking Torah now. But Torah, there's different levels to Torah. There's nigla, that's the shmir dimension. Then there's Primus HaTorah, which we learn now. That's like, relatively speaking, the Chochmah dimension. Well, actually,
Primus of the Primus HaTorah, which will be Lasid Love, is essentially infinite.
Yeah. Yeah. And unchanging it. You know, look at the evolution of Torah. The language of Torah is constantly changing. The pratim is changing. The Gemara was the pratim lagabe what? The Mishnah, which was the klal. But that's, you know, Yiddishkeit is not defined by Gemara. It's got to go through a whole evolution of poskim, etc. So the language is constantly evolving and changing. A whole million svarim on the same subject. And each generation has its unique language. Rishonim, Goyim, and the Rishonim, Achronim. But Lasid Lovai, what's going to be revealed? Not just Chachma Pnimius per se, because to that degree, on some level, we have that now also, on some degree. The Iker Chiddush is going to be the etzem of Torah. The author himself.
So the etzem will be Miskala.
That's the whole point here. Nisgala means, what does it mean, Nisgala? Like in the Iya, you know, the whole thing is there. We're going to, what word can I use here? Not understand, not appreciate, experience. I don't know what word to use, but yes. Nismacha boy batzmusay. And the etzem, as it is then, is expressed through klal and prat and everything, although nothing disappears. But all experience, you know, it's like, maybe a poor moshel for this, but again, we said in the previous moshel, you know, if you're dealing with someone, you're talking to someone, if you are relating to their essence, you're not going to hear, you know, I'm talking to a human being. If that's all you're thinking and seeing, is you're not going to be able to relate to what he's saying, personality type, the details, right? You can't have both at the same time. Like I said, looking at the atom and being cognizant of the atom, one little atom, you cannot appreciate the molecular structure, atom of what? But Lasid Love, it'll be both. This is the yichud of Havai and Elikim. Meaning, we will look and see everything in its all of its details and klal and all of those constrictions, and at the same time be cognizant of atmos and mos and all of it, which we can't do now. You're dealing with the klal, you're dealing with the pratim, or an abstraction, you're dealing with the etzem, which you're not even understanding, which can only be a sightful thing, which we don't have, only that Yisrael had. We're talking about it. We're bringing Misholim for it. But then it's going to be that Gilui, the Gilui of Atzmos through all of all of creation, Torah, through first in Torah, and through Torah, all of creation. We'll be cognizant of all of creation and all of its pratim, but simultaneously the essential oneness of it all, and the essential bittul b'metzias doesn't mean that it disappears, but totally nullified to the truth of Atzmos. In other words, we're going to have God's perspective. How does Hashem see everything? Doesn't see things as independent from Him. Hishtalshalos, from Hashem's perspective, there's higher and there's lower. There's no higher and lower. Higher and lower is klal, prat, the endless tzimtzum process that the Maimon went on to describe. So for us, there's a whole ladder of divinity. Higher, closer, further, lower, klippe. It's a very disparate life. Reality is highly compartmentalized and disparate, and there's this huge, ladder, Yaakov's ladder, rung after rung after rung, higher, closer, further. For the Eibishter, there's no further, higher, closer. It's all him. Does that mean he doesn't see the pratim? He only sees himself in his creation. He's not aware of the details of creation. He's aware of it and bring it into being every moment. But for the Eibishter, it's not separate. It's all one with him. The Moshel brought in Chassidus is not perfect for our discussion here. Okay, later it is already. Okay, the quick story. The Moshel is when a Rav gives a moshel. So the Talmud hears the moshel. He doesn't get the seichel. It's milim on the seichel. And as he, after year after year, till it gets 40 years, he's able to grasp the seichel. But as the Rav is giving the moshel, it doesn't conceal the seichel. It's his moshel for his seichel. There's no concealment at all. Even as he's saying the moshel. Well, it's a story of a king and the Bas Melech and the Ben Melech. But as he's saying that story with all of its details, the teacher is saying that in the classroom, in the teacher's mind and perspective, there's absolutely no concealment. The moshel is bottle betachlis, bittul b'mitzias, through the seichel that he is expressing with the perspective of the students. All they're getting, it's a story, and they've got to work through the story to get to the idea and all of the stages of all the rungs of decoding and discovery. Okay, we'll continue Be'ez Hashem tomorrow.